the Polish ambassador to the United States, Mr. Schnepp. No, just speak. Just speak.
Is it
Yes,
okay?
yes,
right.
simple.
Thank you very much. It was very interesting. Let me refer to something important that was quoted by Fred Kempe in the introductory speech, the Minister Sikorski's words about unfinished business between Europe and the United States. This was quote of the Mr. Sikorski's speech during the AJC Global Forum in Washington last week. And let me say that in my experience, and this is a kind of a unique one because only a year ago I've been working in one of the European Union countries, namely Spain, and now I'm posted in Washington, D.C. So this double perspective gives me perhaps a little bit different point of view, and it comes to that we, on both sides, we are not taking enough seriously how important the transatlantic relations are. First of all, because with our business is done, everything goes smoothly, and there are few things to be created in future. The only that left is the transatlantic, of course, trade agreement, which will be a very tough business for next years. But let me say something that is, from my perspective, important, that is, it is easy to do the business with any country in the world. For the United States, Canada, or any European country. You can have a good deal with any country. I won't name any precisely, just not to offend them. But if the matters are getting tough, if we come to the serious business, and our security and democracy in jeopardy, where are the real assets? This is the transatlantic leadership in the world and responsibility. So finally, what is written here, community of values decide that if the things are getting worse, the United States has the allied countries in Europe and vice versa. If we are in need, we look into the situation in the United States, Canada, the allies within the NATO system, simply because we know that if we say democracy, we know what it means. This is not somebody else's democracy. This is the world concept of democracy. If we talk about the human rights, we know what the human rights is. We don't enter into discussion what really means to give somebody the real rights to behave as a free person. So what I want to say is that with all possibilities that any country have, especially the United States and the European countries, doing good businesses in the world, if we need to have the global security, the real partners is the European Union on one side and the Northern American community on the other side. And this won't be probably changed in future years. So we have really, like, in a good marriage, bring gifts, a present every week or at least once a year to say it's good to be together. And that's the message. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. I'm looking for further questions. Yes, there are 5 now. So now I have a problem. Mr. Prime Minister, which side would we like to go, left or right first?
We start with the right always.
Thank you. So there is a gentleman to the right. Yes.
Whoever he is.
I'm Ian Brzezinski from the Atlantic Council. President Obama has laid out the objective.
I think you should speak
Can you
closer.
hear this?
No.
Can you hear this?
Yes, yes. But sometimes we in Poland use electronic devices, so occasionally. So could we? No, but it's I understand.
Use the mic.
Just for the sake of translation, I think we should use the microphone. So could we fix one microphone?
Does that work?
No.
No.
Does that work? Yes.
Yeah,
All right.
keep it close.
My name is Ian Brzezinski. I'm a fellow at Atlantic Council. You've emphasized TTIP.
No.
President Obama has talked about achieving TTIP, Transatlantic Trade and Investment Partnership, by 2014. Leveraging your experience, I'd be interested, because I see we have some former congressional staffer in addition to an ambassador. We have someone who's an outside observer of the process. Is 2014 a realistic objective? And if not, why?
Okay, why don't we go straight to you, Mr. Ambassador, if 2014 is a realistic date?
Optimism is a good thing in negotiations. It's a short time frame, there's no question, but it wasn't chosen by accident, as Ian Brzezinski knows. There's been a lot of preparation in advance of the formal opening of the formal talks, and in the views of the people who have been involved in these negotiations, that level of preparation is more extensive than anything that they had been involved with before. So I would say that that is a very positive sign from the EU and US side, which is that there's been a lot of work. What it reminds me of a little bit is of a fundraising campaign that you announced for a big university where you set the goal of $100 million and you announce the start of the campaign after you've already raised $50 million. So I think that we are not starting from scratch, we're starting in a good place. Now, the other reason that those dates were set, of course, is because of politics on both sides of the Atlantic, and it would be certainly easier to get this done, for example, just speaking from the US perspective, before the midterm elections are in earnest. So yes, it's ambitious, but it's a good goal, and there have been a lot of preparations, so we're not starting from the beginning.
Thank you. Microphone, yes, please.
Jarosław Pietras, Council of the European Union. I've got a question to ambassadors, Feinstein and also Plunkett. Negotiations are always about qui pro quo. You exchange something. And then I can imagine what Europe wants from these negotiations. Prime Minister Bielecki was saying about stumbling blocks. I would put it a bit different. What, in your view, is something that Canada or US could offer in order to convince Europe to get more engaged? If it's just only about jobs and growth, I would say it is quite obvious, and if this would be so simple, this would be done already much earlier. But in the negotiations, you have to come with a kind of offer. What do you think would be the best attraction to make European convinced to go deeply, I mean, except for these general benefits that you can derive from free trade?
Yes, thank you very much, Mr. Pietras. You have to be very careful with the answer because he's a very important employee of the European Commission right now in Brussels. So
Thank you for the
if he
warning.
knows something from you,
It sort of bridges the two questions. I would say bon chance to your efforts to finish this. We've been negotiating consistently, steadily since basically the fall of 2009. We had thought it was going to take 2 to 3 years. People who have done this for many years, like me, were more inclined to think it would take 3 years. We're already at 3.5 and hopefully near the end. So I wish you well to try to finish this up, particularly given all the EU institutional changes that are coming starting fairly soon. In the context of our negotiations, we have aimed to be as comprehensive and as ambitious as possible. And frankly, the more ambitious it is, the easier it is for both sides to make concessions, because as in any agreement, you have to give to get. We have interests in the trade in goods area. Services investment in terms of market access and whatnot have been very important to both sides. Again, if you look back at the study they did, it identifies a lot of these details. Europe and the US in part have had concerns about some of our intellectual property issues for some time. We have some issues related to government procurement as well. We're both federal states, and so the issue of subnationals is important. But likewise, we're dealing with 27 member states, soon 28, which have their own internal issues. Frankly, Europe is a regulatory, you guys have mastered red tape. And if there's one thing that both the US and we are trying to break through, is some of the massive number of regulatory barriers that are up there. In many ways, what may speed up the US process is that there's a lot of overlap between our issues and the US issues. And so while we might not find the perfect solution, if we can find our way through some of these things, it might actually accelerate some of the US discussions. So, I can't speak to what the US is looking for in theirs, and it may in part depend on how many things get carved out at the mandate discussion tomorrow.
Okay, thank you. Would you like to, or I can go because there are some.
Go, yeah.
Okay, I go ahead. So we go to the center now, because I would not like be too much.
Absolutely.
Yeah, thank you.
The majority.
Yes, majority. And could you be so kind and identify yourself, because I can recognize.
Yes, I'm Ian Bond from the Centre for European Reform in London. The question I had was about China. Ambassador Feinstein referred to China, I think in terms of TTIP setting standards that would apply to other countries, including China. I'm about to make a visit to China myself, and two of the institutions that I have visited have both specifically asked me to talk to them about TTIP. On the other hand, Mr. Witucki said we're doing great business with China despite the gap in values. So I'd be interested to hear from the panel how they do see the impact of TTIP on China and what sort of standard setting they see, whether this is just a technical exercise or whether in fact they see long-term some convergence on other things like labor standards and the like.
Okay, that's a very good question. So maybe I turn now to the panel and ask at least some of the panelists how they would view the impact of the transatlantic or trans-Pacific negotiations on the relationship with China. Mr. Prime Minister, and then maybe I go to...
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I will address the Trans-Pacific, and then the Atlantic can be covered by my other colleagues. I think my sense, I'm also a regular visitor to China. In fact, I'll be there next week for one of the events which happens so regularly in that country. My own view is they are looking for open trade. They are looking for more investment coming in. So the mindset, I can't comment on technical details of a negotiation because it's much more than mindset. I can only talk to the mindset of the people I have talked to at all levels in China, which is more trade, free trade, more investment, more flow of goods and money both ways. Now, having said that, that has been a driver of growth in China. So you can see why they feel this way. On the other hand, the recipient countries have concerns, and I think there are concerns which should not be taken lightly, that China being an efficient producer or low-cost producer in certain items, there, if you open your borders to trade, what does it do to domestic industry? But that takes us to the more fundamental point of trade negotiations, which is, do you philosophically believe free trade is good and free trade is the solution? The answer is maybe. Because every country, you take Canada, if it's the issue is wheat or agriculture, the red flag may go up. And politically, that is a real issue. And I sympathize with that. So I think we have to look at this as a practical matter. Free trade and open trade should be the way to go. And there may be a few things which, for a particular country, are so politically sensitive that rather than damage the whole free trade arena, you can make exceptions in a few products and move on. And as self-confidence develops, then you open up more. That would be a practical way. I know that's not a purist way, but I think that approach, if we take, will get us further. Same applies to, I guess, the Atlantic. Same can apply. There are issues in Europe. People have political issues, and we can't be unsympathetic or about those issues. Governments have to survive, so they have to find a good medium. But eventually, the global economy gains with free trade. In theory, that's correct. In practice, you got to have these nuances.
Thank you. Ambassador Feinstein, on China, easy question.
Yeah. I think what the appeal of the Transatlantic Trade Agreement is that not just the old issues that we've been talking about, which I do think can create problems for us, and I worry about that, but also in this sort of very changing nature of technology in some of these new areas which have not been regulated bilaterally between us adequately, that we have an opportunity first to set standards and regulations. Not that that's going to then dictate what the Chinese do, but it will create a competitive environment which will be favorable to us. And that, I think, is the key point with respect to China, and that would be the hope.
Yeah, thank you. We've got a few more questions. Yes, I can. Yes, I think you, madam, you were ahead of the gentleman in the middle. So last two, and then I have to end up the session.
Good afternoon. My name is Ewa Synowiec, and I'm head of the European Commission representation in Poland. I have a question to our panelists from American and maybe Polish side. How to communicate about ongoing negotiations, because it's always the problem. We already experienced ACTA negotiations and these accusations that institutions negotiating this agreement were lacking transparency. Of course, it's not possible to have full transparency because it's about international negotiations, but we at least, our citizens deserve certain information, and we should talk about what's going on and how to tell people, how to tell simple citizens what they will get as ordinary people from those this agreement. So I would be really interested in Ambassador Feinstein comment on this, how American citizens perceive it, if they are so sensitive as Europeans, and maybe Mr. Witucki could also comment how Polish authorities or maybe European Commission in Poland should communicate about this, the most complex, the most difficult and ambitious agreement ever. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Maybe I take the last question. Yes, microphone in the middle, please.
Good morning. My name is Sergiusz Najar. I am an economic advisor and non-executive banker with Santander Consumer Bank. My question then goes to Mr. Witucki to speak about business. To what extent, in your opinion, the success of the Euro-Atlantic debate might help Prime Minister Cameron to, let's say, to make the economic community, the business community, and the City of London more on favor of European integration, and to calm down a bit the Euroscepticism of conservatives and their political family, which to some extent are even threatening of leaving European Union, because we might end up having a very nice transatlantic marketplace without UK, somewhere in the middle. This is a business question, and I hope to get a business answer.
Okay, so there was one question regarding Polish attitude, and then directly to you. So you are Polish, so You have 40 seconds to answer all the questions.
Okay, so as a poll concerning the communication, first of all, I think we need to communicate about it and in the kind of wider and the entire scope. Today, I was just trying to check on my iPad what kind of information you can find even on the Polish internet. They're rather about the people's information about which kind of anti-missile equipment have been installed on the Secretary Kerry Boeing when he was flying to Brussels than about the impact of his visit on the daily life of Europeans. So first we have to communicate, and the ACTA protests in Poland have been a perfect example of the situation where just a piece of the treaty have been taken out, and it was it turned into the kind of social conflict. So it's again, this is the role. We have the public medias, we have the newspapers, and we have a lot of politicians in Europe. So they should discuss about it more often. And now, because I was supposed to represent France. So to represent France for a second, I would say you don't change Brits. So, and this is the obviously absolutely private and not authorized comment from this side. But I really believe that Great Britain is a pragmatic country. Yeah. It's a very pragmatic country. So if we have this Treaty of Europe going ahead, and I believe this is an added value, creates for added value for Europe, the Great Britain will join, but it will not change the fact that they are the largest exception in Europe, and they will stay the largest exception in Europe. So I wouldn't mix the success of this with a change of the political traditions of the island. But it will be rather an argument of seeing Europe as reasonable, as more reasonable. So the Brexit making the Brexit slightly less provocative.
Okay, thank you. The good news for the audience is that the time is up. It's bad news, of course, for the panelists. But I would like to thank the panelists and the distinguished audience for participation. And before we adjourn, I would like to welcome you, but you are already on the stage, so the floor is yours.
Thank you very much. Good afternoon. Welcome to the first afternoon of the Wroclaw Global Forum. My name's Fran Burwell. I'm from the Atlantic Council. I'm going to pop up here every now and then and give you some information on what's going on next. We hope this will make it more enjoyable and a useful visit here to Wroclaw. And so we thank you in advance for your attention. I want to first note the presence of our many excellent volunteers who are here to help you, and many thanks to all of them. In a few minutes, we'll break for coffee, but first a word about social media. The forum's official Twitter feed is @WGF2013, 2013. So follow us there for important updates. But you can also follow the whole conversation and contribute to it via the hashtag WGF13, as you see up here. We'll be running select tweets with that hashtag on the screens in the foyer. So we now have a coffee break until 3:30, when we will reconvene with the excellent panel on the Transatlantic Energy Revolution, promptly at 3:30. And please join me now in thanking our superb first panel under the leadership of former Prime Minister Bielecki. Thank you all, gentlemen.
Thank you. We are done. Pleasure.
Ambassador, thank you.
Mr. Prime Minister, real pleasure. Well done.
Thank you.
Thank you.